Well, hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here with my friend and partner, Jason Mantell from Oak Hill Union School District. Once again, my name is Daniel Bernstein, and I'm the CEO of Teachally. Welcome to Sup Chat, Jason. We're excited for you to be here. I'm super thrilled to actually have a conversation with you because we've known each other for a while now. You've been both a partner and a friend, and we're super thrilled to actually get to know you a little bit more, to have you kind of talk to the world about your experience in not just your success in Oak Hill, but just your life in general. You know, how you became interested in education, how you became a superintendent, how you became, in that leadership coaching position that you've kind of put yourself in as well. Super thrilled to have you. So thanks again for joining us today. So maybe as a first step, if you could just introduce yourself and just talk about, before we get into Oak Hill, talk about your path to education, like how you got there. I think that's important for people to know. It's always different.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This has been something I've been looking forward to since you reached out. So my path to education, I would say fairly traditional. It is not something that I initially intended. I have both of my parents are retired educators, so it's family business. And I have my brother. My one brother is a teacher. His twin sister is a teacher, and my youngest sister is a speech and language pathologist. So all school related people. I This was not my intention finishing high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I went in. I didn't want to go in undeclared, which hindsight is not what I would tell people. If you don't know, don't guess. But I knew my parents were really quality educators as well as really, really just quality people. And I was raised, I think, exceptionally well by two really wonderful people who embraced education fully and completely for a combined 70 years. So ultimately, I went back and forth. I changed my major halfway through. I was going to go and take on the giant world of business. And then after a very brief stint in that, I reverted back to education. So that's really the infancy of how I got to where as far as the beginnings. And I've done everything. I was a teacher and a coach. I was an athletic director and assistant principal. I've been a principal of multiple buildings. I was a director of operations and assistant superintendent. I took a 2-year hiatus and I ran a county government organization as executive director. And then I came back to education 4 years ago and entered my first superintendency, hopefully my only superintendency. I don't have any plans to do this anywhere other than Oak Hill.
That's awesome. No, it's a great district. And so I guess the path from, obviously becoming an educator, it has to kind of be a calling. It has to be in the family, which obviously it is a lot of times. In your case, the kind of the path from becoming an educator to a superintendent, you go through the path of being a principal and then to a superintendent. Why is that a direction that you found yourself into, like going into it? Why is that something that you were excited about and focused on doing?
I've always enjoyed working with others, collaborating, finding some way to serve. And in doing that, as I was a teacher, I want to be very clear. It's always students first. It should always be. And you hear that a lot. And I think a lot of people outside of education probably think that's just some cliche. No, that is absolutely why we all do it, or why we should be doing it. For me, as I progressed through my career, I was a teacher for 12 years. I started to realize I wanted to impact more people. And the way to do that, for me anyway, and it isn't everyone's path, but for me, it was to become an administrator. So I felt really comfortable. I felt comfortable working with adults. And in this particular situation, becoming a principal or an assistant principal initially, I was able to learn a lot more about education. It is obviously about the education piece, the instructional piece, but there's so much more to it. And I really enjoy learning and I consider myself, another education cliche, lifelong learner. So with that in mind, I just wanted to progress. It wasn't about being the boss or being in charge. I feel like I work with people really well, and I've always felt that comfortable in a leadership role. So, progressing was not a difficult decision for me. So, in this world, becoming a superintendent, that's it. We're for lack of a better term, the CEOs of public school districts. And, so for me, this is it. Is in the education world. And I've also recently, just several months ago, started a public coaching and advising business. And I work with leaders from different backgrounds, not just in education. And I've really come to enjoy that. So really, you get to the point, someone once asked me, well, you're a superintendent, what's next? And at the time, I didn't know. But over the last few years, I've been doing some mentoring. It started with mentoring, and then it moved into some advising, and I really enjoy the coaching side of it. And although I was a coach of I was a head coach in multiple sports, this personal coaching, this business coaching, leadership coaching is something I've really, really begun to enjoy. So that's really it's what's next for me. So I would say after the superintendency, I'll continue that on a larger scale basis.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So, what is it about superintendency that I have answers to that as well from my experience with you guys? I've gotten to know you specifically over the years, and I understand the challenges of leadership are so incredibly stressful and so incredibly unique to superintendency that positions you in a way that I don't think any other job does to really understand what really true leadership is. If you can talk about that, that'd be great.
So I think a lot of superintendents find themselves, and I've not, I've been an executive director in small government, and now I've been, I'm currently a superintendent. I think, I have not been a CEO in the private sector. I think there are probably comparisons from the leaders I work with in the private sector. I do find that there are similarities. I think we find ourselves too often on an island. Most of us answer to a board of some sort. So you have a lot of, there's political influence. In some cases, as you see across the country, there are some financial influence that does impact decisions way too often, especially in the school setting. So really, I think it's finding a network and finding people you can trust and have a conversation with. So really, our challenges, they're multi-tiered. So in the educational world, we're student focused, but we also have staff, and like here we have two different unions as well. And we have a variety. We have our teachers union, and then we have our support staff union. And of course, within the teachers union, there are different jobs and responsibilities. Within the support staff union, there are different jobs, responsibilities, classifications. So you're working with all different types of personalities who have very different jobs. Now, we all support students. We all focus on safety. We all focus on a well-organized organization, but you have personalities. And I think the most successful leaders are able to work with and navigate those without making it personal. That's been the biggest thing for me. I failed at that often throughout my career, early in my career, mid part, and now this is my 26th year in public service. So for me, it's effectively navigating different personalities, understanding the needs, understanding the wants, understanding the daily requirements and necessities it takes to work with such a wide variety of people. And you have community members on top of that. So, whether it be parents, whether it be business owners, whether it be booster organizations, we need to be able to work with and communicate with a lot of different people without it becoming personal, without creating personal disagreements or differences. So I think communication and avoiding the island mentality and finding a good group you can trust.
No, that's true. Now, you mentioned something. I want to get into that a little bit more because it's so critical to leadership. My son always says, "Hey, I just want to do this. I want to make sure I don't fail." And I'm like, "That's the whole point. The whole point of doing something is to fail. You have to fail because you have to learn how to fail in order to be successful." And I think there's a certain amount of resiliency when you've been in a leadership position for a long time that comes from ability to fail and not, and kind of get up and get going. And like in a boxing ring, right? You get knocked down, you get up, and sometimes you just outlast the other opponent because you're just able to get up more than he does or she does. So in that sense, I think it'll be great to kind of sense, like, and I didn't put this in the list of questions that I sent you, Jason. So I know, but I think it's important to talk about. What's your biggest failure? Like, where did you fail? Where you're like, hey, you really fell hard and you needed to kind of get up and dust yourself off and really kind of reinvent yourself a bit.
I don't know that there's one thing, Dan, I can point to that's my biggest failure.
It's just all been failure.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Friend and partner. Yeah, I don't think there's been one thing that I can isolate as my biggest failure. One of the things I know that when I left education briefly, and it wasn't because I, was unhappy or didn't like education. I wanted to expand my personal abilities, skill sets, and influence in a positive way. So when I went to county government, I continued to hire people with the same mentality I had as a principal and as an assistant superintendent. And what I realized is I knew this going in, it's a different job. So the positions I was hiring, they weren't carrying out the same responsibilities. So I convinced myself, I pride myself on being a very good finder and developer of talent. And I thought that everything that I knew from 20 plus years in education, because this was just a few years ago. I've only been at Oak Hill for 4 years. I thought I could take exactly that system and I was going to hire the best employees that way. Well, I found out very quickly that although some of it was effective, I was failing in finding the best talent because I was in the mindset of looking for the best teachers, the best educators. And although teachers and educators make wonderful employees outside of education, I needed a different skill set. There were some people I needed to bring in people with some different life experiences, with some different mindsets, with some different views. So I would say one of my biggest failures initially, probably my first 3 months in the new role, because I was part of the reason I was brought in as executive director was to really create an overhaul within. It was evaluation and change management and of that organization, which we did, and I think we did a really good job doing that because I had a great team, that we were able to assemble. But then I failed hard, and it was interesting because the other people, the people in supervisory roles, they learned quickly. I want to share. We're going to communicate respectfully, but be honest. And honest and nice aren't always they don't always fit together. And I said, hey, I want to hear this. What can I do better? What am I doing wrong? And once we got, they became comfortable. It was like, we can tell you. It's like, yeah, if you don't think what I'm doing is effective, tell me. So I leaned on those supervisors and they said, listen, Jason, what you did probably worked really well in education as far as your hiring standards and practices, but here it's a little different. And so we collaborated, we worked together, and we rebuilt what we were looking for. So I came in with probably a little bit of an arrogant mindset, and I learned a lesson there. And I was well into my career, Dan. I mean, I'd been in education over 20 years at this point. So I think it was maybe 21 years in. And man, I had it now. Like, hey, this is how we advertise. This is how we interview. These are the skills we're looking for. This is how we do background evaluation, all of these different things. And it wasn't that system was wrong, but it definitely needed tweaks. And it really made me a better leader. And it really made me a better, a better evaluator of people and talent, and I became stronger. And I think I'm a better superintendent for having done that.
Unquestionably, unquestionably, and I think the failures define us. The successes really don't. I mean, the failures are the things that really we learn from. The successes are, kind of think that successes are basically the result of us being able to be excellent at what we do. But the failures are the learning moments where we become resilient. We think about, okay, well, what did I do here that I need to change? And so I think it's a lesson that any successful person has gone through. You have to go through a series of failures to be able to be successful. So I agree with that 100%. So that's great. And thank you for sharing that with us as well, Jason. That's awesome. Um, so let's talk about Oak Hill kind of regionally. And I wanted to kind of get into this a little bit more because, you know, um, you know, about the district itself and its location. This is, what I learned pretty early on when I come to visit you guys, when I came to visit Southeastern Ohio. And I kind of learned a little bit more about the very unique um, challenges, unique qualities of the place, things that are similar everywhere. I mean, I think you see that in rural districts across this country, but they're very kind of unique things to you guys that are really interesting and kind of really probably, you know, shape the region. You're kind of in the nexus of three different states, and there's a lot of things happening there.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, immediately like Oak Hill. So Oak Hill has a very 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 proud Welsh history. So it was founded by a group of Welsh individuals, and we actually have a museum. We have a Welsh museum in Oak Hill, and we still we have our school celebrates that. Our music and drama department recently did something in the fall in honor of that. Our football team a few years ago, we had jerseys from the original Oak Hill football team, which had Welsh symbolism. So that's something. A lot of our employees are descendants of those individuals. So that's one thing as far as Oak Hill specific. There's a lot of pride in that, and a lot of those original family names are still here. On a broader context, I mean, we're part of Appalachia, and so there's a rich history of that. I think depending on where you are in the country, there are different connotations. I think sometimes that word takes on a negative connotation of, and I'll say it. I think in conversations I've had with people when I tell them where I'm from, and they don't equate that with Appalachia. They look at it as ignorance or laziness or joblessness, opioid epidemic, and while there are pieces in every community that maybe are not our most proud points or our proud moments, this is an area of very proud individuals who have been here for generations. And there are a lot of really quality people who come out of here, whether regardless of what the work is. And I mean, I'm not from Oak Hill. I'm not from this county, but I did grow up in this region. I was born and raised in this region. I've lived other places. I've worked other places throughout the state. And although my wife and I, we make it a point to expose our children to other regions, to other countries, when we can, we want them to be proud of where they're from. And I think that's a big thing. I think there's a lot of probably nationwide ignorance of what this is. I mean, it's a beautiful area. If you're an outdoors person at all, this is a great place for you. I mean, if you hunt or if you fish, I don't do either. It's just I have other interests. But it's great for that. I mean, if you enjoy camping, if you enjoy hiking, which I love hiking and kayaking, that's what our family. Some of the things our family does, we enjoy. There's a lot of natural beauty, but there are some innovative folks here who do a lot of very interesting things, and a lot of things that aren't just limited to here, that we've been able to expand and share with other areas. So for us, we're large geographically, over 160 square miles. We have about 1,000 students, K-12. We also have a preschool, which puts us a little, obviously, over 1,000. So it's a small district. as far as numbers go, but geographically we're very large. We touch several other districts, and so partnerships are really important, and building trust, because we do share services in this area. We don't, this. We don't have a curriculum director. We don't have departments. We don't have that many administrators. So we share. Not only do we share responsibilities in the district, we share responsibilities with neighboring districts. I have a really good relationship with all of the surrounding superintendents, and I attend two meetings a month with two different consortiums. You visited us in one of them, the larger consortium, and it's really important that we work together because, again, shared services, trust, try to get our calendars aligned. Those things are important. I don't think people don't think about that a lot. Inclement weather, when it hits here, it's a big deal. We have flood days, we have snow days. We so hopefully we don't have any flood days because we've had enough snow days this year. But those things are we experience a lot of the same challenges. But when we come together and we have good relationships, not only do we share challenges, we share successes, and I think that's really, really important. Although each small community and each small town has their own sense of pride and have their own traditions, collectively, I think we have the tradition of supporting one another, which is really, really important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is kind of where the two topics that we just talked about really intersect from my perspective, because you know when I came to visit you guys, I came with an open mind. I had a product that was in, I probably would say, MVP stage, right? It was Teachally, the first generation of Teachally. It was doing all the things that it currently does, but it wasn't doing a lot of the other things that it needed to do. And so I came in with an open mind to talk to you guys, and instantly was told that, hey, how are you doing HQIM? So obviously, go and find out what HQIM means. Here I am. I'm complete newbie to education, right? So, this is a couple of years ago now, but I went in again to learn from you guys, and I didn't have any misconceptions or I guess kind of preconceived notions, I guess, of what you guys are going to be able to provide. So I said, I'm going to learn from this group, and they're going to teach me some stuff, and you guys did. And so the what started as this exploration of how HQIM could be integrated within what we provide to educators became the heart and soul of what we do at Teachally. And I owe it all to that initial meeting that we had, and having those discussions that led me to, okay, first we're going to build the first HQM rubric and build that into the lesson model. Now we want to make sure that we fully integrate HQIM. And then I continued to just explore from that and just saw that so much was possible. But it all started with me visiting, you guys in a small Appalachian school district without any preconceived notions. I'm here to learn, and I'm going to form a beginner's mind, and I'm going to go ahead and learn everything that I can, because I can't go in there and assume to teach. I need to go in there and assume to learn. So that's what I did. And I think this is, again, talk about, failure. It came in and said, hey, we've got this great platform. And they're like, yeah, that's a great platform. But if it's not HQIM, we're not touching it. I was like, okay. So 2 weeks later, we had an HQIM solution, but it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that open dialogue. And I appreciate that so much with the region and in the heart of Teachally, in my heart. That trip, that very, very fateful trip, was the thing that really transformed and shaped us into the kind of company that we have, and also into the kind of relationship that I have with you, and how it formed over the years. And so when you think about that, from that perspective, there's also, there's the student success and teacher success that happens, right? So when you look at the progression of your kids through your schools, what defines that student success for you, and what defines teacher success as well? Obviously, student success that's what we're doing, but then teacher success is the way to get there.
Well, I mean, for us, those are tied together, and we want to provide opportunities for young people. I mean, we are in a nation that focus, and I don't want to say that the average person feels this way, but standardized testing and state created scoring rubrics have been utilized. And a lot of that's not created by educators, but those are things that have been utilized to judge or rate school districts. And I'm not saying that you cannot find usable metrics in there, because you can, and we do. But for us, how I define success, are we investing in opportunities that will allow our students to become quality humans and be productive people and be creative people when they leave the walls of Oak Hill? And do our teachers have the solutions and the tools? Not solutions isn't even a good, that's not even a good word. Do they have the tools and the training available to them to allow those opportunities to develop and to grow and to, people always talk about expectations and exceeding expectations. Yeah, exceeding expectations is great, but sometimes we set our expectations too low and they're easy to exceed. We want to continue to grow our expectations and continue to beat those year after year. And for us, Dan, it's as simple as, can we provide our students the same thing that a large metro can provide theirs? Whether it's a wealthy suburban, whether it's a large metro area, whether it's an urban center, whether it's a small rural like us, all of those students, and we should collectively want our students to have opportunities, and not just provide the opportunities, but that exposure is great. But a lot of the kids, how do I take advantage positively of these opportunities? So we want our students, people say, a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, we want to prepare kids for college and the workforce. Well, is that really all we're here to do? That's a factory. That's not, we're here to educate. Are we educating children? Are we giving them opportunities? Are we allowing them to have open discussion? Are we allowing them to disagree and teaching them how to disagree respectfully? I think the adults in our country, and obviously we're two of us are involved with this, we owe it to our young people to learn how to disagree respectfully. That's been a lost art. And I think that's one thing that we definitely at Oak Hill, and I think regionally, want to work on. So to me, I hope that answers your question. But really, it isn't just providing its opportunity. It's how to take positive advantage of that opportunity, how to communicate respectfully, celebrating wins while acknowledging struggles. Those are things that are all very important to me. Those are wins. Those are wins for our district and for really any district.
Now, what I love about what you just said is that you didn't say we want to make sure that we are able to beat standardized testing in the next year. You're not setting short-term goals. You're thinking transformatively. You're thinking systemically. You're thinking how to actually become better. How do we make better humans, instead of thinking how do we make better test takers? Because better test takers don't necessarily make better humans. And this is what I think is really, really great about how you lead and how you think about success, is that you're focused on making better humans, not so much about saying, okay, how do we create a short-term event that may not necessarily lead to that really important goal that we all need to strive for.
No, we want problem solvers. We want to encourage problem solving. We want to encourage creativity. We have a really good relationship with our Career Tech Center. We have since built relationships with with regional and state level universities, and we have a few in this area that are really quality. We want to encourage innovation, and we're doing that. I mean, we've restarted and revamped programs here. We have college credit plus courses. We had zero credit hours in our building when I arrived. Our principals and our teachers have done a phenomenal job. We have over 20 credit hours that can be in-house. We have a first of its kind sports medicine program in our high school. We were the first ones in Ohio. We piloted that 3 years ago, and now it's growing throughout the state. And we did that through a partnership with a healthcare organization and a career tech center. And it didn't take tons of dollars, and it didn't take a law to change. It took a group of people who saw need and said, okay, what is potentially standing in our way? Let's eliminate that. Let's work through that, and let's develop something and create something together that's really good for kids. And we're proud of those things. And there are other. I mean, Dan, you've met some other superintendents from all over the country and from this region. Every district has their own success stories and things that they piloted, things that they developed, things that they created. And I think those are important because a lot of times it's, well, look what this superintendent did. No superintendent did anything on their own. That's a myth. That's not true. We're the ones who are out in front and we get to talk to the media and all that's great. But the fact is we don't do anything without support from community members, from students, from staff members, from parents, from community partners. So it's a lot of hard work from a lot of people. And, like I said, we're happy that Teach Ally is joining us in that because, Dan, I'll say this for you, and I may be jumping ahead, so I apologize if I'm stealing your thunder, but I'm going to me, if anyone wants to know why we chose Teach Ally, it's because Dan Bernstein did not try to sell anything to me. He wanted to show something to me. He wanted to learn from me and from other educators. It was not a sales call. This wasn't Dan and I just kind of met by happenstance. And, you got a middle America guy in Ohio, you got a Northwest US guy and you outside of Seattle, and we just connected. And it was, and I'll tell you right now, we both got out of our comfort zone, and that's how we met. I needed to get out of my comfort zone of, regionally, we do a lot of great things, but I wanted to learn what was going on nationwide, worldwide. You, not an education background, wanted to build something that's sustainable and that benefits all districts. And you didn't have that when we first met. You had a amazing core of something, and I knew that because again, you never tried to sell anything to me. And I will forever be in a world where people are trying to sell a lot of things. You wanted to show something. You wanted to learn something. And I appreciate that. And that's why we're partners, this district in your company. And that's why we're going to continue to be partners. So anyone listening to this, if you have questions, I have no issue. Contact me because I'm not just saying this. This is not a paid endorsement. Not at all. This is an educator talking about an individual in Dan who stepped out of his comfort zone to build something that I think is going to potentially revolutionize how we instruct, how teachers instruct, and how teachers are able to, embrace the time they have and use it not just for creating high quality materials or assessments, but some of that time that they normally would be spending hours and hours building that, this platform allows them to focus on the student and learn how do I best instruct, whether it's differentiation, whether it's science of reading module, whether it's the STEM lab, all of the things that you've built. I mean, these are all things that are just since we became partners that you've built. So sorry if I stole some of your thunder on your platform there, but Dan, when I talk about it makes me excited because you continue to listen to educators and bring educators onto your team to work with other educators because you learn that, hey, you're great in the tech world, but you needed feedback from educators and you got plenty of it. Maybe more than you need sometimes, but no, it's just a great platform and we love the partnership.
I love it. Thank you, Jason. You know me. I don't like to talk about myself terribly much, but so I appreciate that you did because otherwise we would be like, oh, okay. But no, I mean, it's nice of you to say all those things. And from my perspective, the reason why I built Teach Ally was mission driven, was really to learn. One of the things that I really realized pretty quickly, we talk about having food deserts in this country. Like we talk about the fact that you can go on all these places and there's not a grocery store. Well, you also have education deserts as well, right? So places where high quality instruction is very difficult to find because you can't recruit those teachers. It's hard to recruit those teachers. There's a smaller pool, I think you guys are fortunate because you've got some really, really solid instructors. But one of the things that I noticed is I was in an event where there was a superintendent talking, and they were talking about this kind of public-private partnership that they have with the university, and the university feeds them, you know, teachers every year, and they've got this great kind of relationship going. And I was just looking around, right? I was just looking around. I was like, there are all these superintendents from Ohio, from Arkansas, from Indiana, from like all these rural places where they are education deserts. And what makes a student from Indiana or from Ohio or from Arkansas? Why are they? Why should they have a lower quality of education just because of where they live, and just because of where they're brought up, and just because of what's going on in their particular environment? That should never be a factor. The point is, I'm a firm believer in public education. Public education should be education for the public. It should be the same. It should be high quality. It should be driven by the same principles, the highest level principles of high quality instructional materials, by the highest curriculum possible. And why should someone that look, you get overlooked, right? And that's kind of the thing that happens a lot of times is that I talk to these the other type of ed tech providers, and they're like, hey, unless they have 100,000 students, we're not going to have a conversation with them because it's not worth our time. And I'm saying to myself, then why are you in ed tech? Because the point of ed tech is education technology. It's not education for places where you can make the most amount of money as quickly as possible and forget everybody else. Everybody kind of focuses on these big urban districts where they can go in and they can just do this big, huge sale. But to be honest with you, it matters to me to go and actually have a relationship with you and have a relationship where I can actually learn from you and learn what's important, learn what can make a transformative impact in a district to the benefit of students and teachers. And unless we do that as a private public partnership, unless we do that as a relationship, we're never going to uplift this country to a level of education that it deserves. And I believe that in my soul and in my heart. That's why I do what I do. I can do a lot of other things, and I can certainly learn a lot of other things. There's a lot of ways to make money in the world, but this is important, and this matters. And I appreciated our partnership, and I continue to do that because it actually brings that to the forefront, and we continue to challenge each other to get to a level where we can actually have real equity across the board. Rural, urban, it doesn't matter. If a kid is in Oak Hill, or if a kid is in a really, really small school district in Arkansas or anywhere else, or a kid is in Boston, right, and in Newton with some fantastic schools there. Why should they really have different types of curriculum? Why should they have different types of materials that they go from? They need to be. We need to align them with the best quality, regardless of where they come from, regardless of how much money their parents make, regardless how many people in the district, regardless of the budget in the district. All those things should be irrelevant. Public education should be high quality for the public, period. Sorry.
Then
So,
I agree with everything you said. No, I agree with everything you said. So, from a lifelong public school guy, I appreciate that. I'm a public high school graduate. I was a prior to that, K-10. I was a parochial school kid, and I appreciate all of that. I don't regret one or love one more than the other. I had a non-public and a public experience, and I appreciate both of those. Now, I've only worked in public, but what you said is right. What you have created, what you have developed, what you have designed has allowed for an efficiency. And while efficiency isn't always the goal, and it shouldn't always be the goal, but you've created and developed a platform that allows teachers and encourages teachers to, not encourages, but it allows efficiency while not taking away teacher creativity and autonomy. And I think that's very important because I think a lot of people look at ed tech and tech in general as a solution. That it's not a solution. It's not. It's a tool. It's a tool. We talk about the world of AI, and you know, obviously there's AI built into all kind of things, and I'm not going to get that's for another time as far as the AI debate, but it's here, and that's a conversation I had with you, and I've had with our staff. Like, regardless of how you feel about it, it is part of our reality, and it's something that we as adults and educators need to understand, and we need to have our students understand responsible use. But what you've done, in addition to all of that, is that, and I'll repeat it because it bears repeating. You did not take authenticity and creativity out of the teacher's hands. This encourages that. There is a tech piece, there is that AI piece, but the teachers, it's not a factory where you're there. It's just a teacher hits a button and it spits out a worksheet. I mean, it's so much more than that. I mean, it is a collaboration. It's building, it's creating, and it's working together to create and develop something that is best suited for kids, that does meet high quality standards, and that does meet all the needs of every teacher across, regardless of what your what your core subject is. And I think that's really important. And ultimately, the students in the end are the one who are going to work, because teachers get to spend more time on relationship building and working on their skills and their craft as educators. And that really is, that's really what matters here, and why we will continue our partnership with Teachally.
Oh, thank you, Jason. The part that you mentioned is so critical, because the important thing to note is, as we think about AI in education, there's a lot of fear from teachers that it will somehow replace them. It somehow is going to be something that is going to kind of take their jobs away from them. And we started Teachally with the confidence and the realization that there is no replacing of a teacher, because a teacher is not someone that just delivers. I had a great teacher. His name was Mr. Tripp. And again, probably if it wasn't for Mr. Tripp, I wouldn't be doing Teachally right now. Mr. Tripp used to say, we used to be in history class and we used to write things down really, really quickly. As he's saying and writing down, he's like, put your notebooks away. Put them, and then he would drop an F-bomb every once in a while, right? He's like, right? He's like, put it away. I said, we were like, why? He's like, you guys are stenographers. This is trivia. You're like writing things down. You're not learning anything. Let's just look around. Let's just talk to each other. Let's engage in debate. Put it away. He would turn off the overhead. Put it away. And what's important is that is a teacher that creates meaningful discussion, that is able to address a student in an empathic way, either individually or in group settings, somehow is able to reach that student, right? So is able to really, really communicate. And that is something that AI, and I know AI, I've been building AI systems since I was 11 years old. I get that. But that's something that AI will never do, because it does not have an empathetic connection to that individual, to that student. That is something that is unique to the teaching profession. That is a reason why teachers become teachers, and they're passionate about what they do. And it is in our mission. It's our desire. It's what we want. It's what we strive to do, is to support that in a way that gives them the ability to say, hey, I'm not going to keep chasing building, the high quality instructional materials. These are done. They're provided. We're going to do that. And that's like, if we can do that, we can help them do that. That's great. But it opens them up to the opportunity to do the other thing, which is the teaching thing, which is something that AI will never, ever, ever do, because that teaching thing is about empathy. It's about individualization. It's about reaching that student. It's about having a conversation. And those are things that we can only help give them enough time to do those things on a daily basis. But that is something that a teacher, only human teacher, is able to do. So there is no replacement for that type of connection. And I think and the way that you've been supporting your staff and supporting your teachers to be able to give them the freedom to do that, I think is really admirable. And I think that's, again, if we look at it, 5 or 10 years from now, I think that would be the lesson of AI in the classroom, is that there is no AI in the classroom. There's the teacher that's in the classroom that is using tools to make it easier for them to reach that student on that empathic, personalized way. So I'm so thrilled to actually have this partnership. The leadership and the learning that I've gotten from you, Jason, over the years has been tremendous. You've been patient with me. Sometimes I get a little frustrated because education does move very, very slowly, the decision making, but I think it's worth it. The partnership is worth it. The learning is worth it. And I am so happy to have you as a partner and have you as a friend.
And Dan, that feeling is mutual. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for joining us today on our Sup Chat. Have a great day, Jason. Have a great day, Jason. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again.